We just
Okay.
zoom here, and just.
My name is Amanda Neese, and I am a junior at Carroll High.
Speak up a little bit.
And I am currently in government class, and I have been learning different pieces of the Constitution. I decided after starting the class that I really like learning about the Constitution, and it's really not that difficult. And I learned especially about representation and how it came about into the Constitution. Only the best and the brightest were able to be the framers or the founding fathers of the Constitution. And they included George Washington, who was unanimously voted president, Benjamin Franklin, who was a brilliant scientist, Governor Morris, who was a basic writer of the Constitution, and James Madison, who was the architect who did many, many hours of research, read books, talked to different people, and just wrote kind of the basis for our Constitution that we have today. They were all highly respected gentlemen, and they were so determined to write the best and the most admired supreme law of the land for our government. However, during the writing process, when representation was being discussed, there came a bump in the road. A debate arose between the smaller states and the larger states. Two plans were developed. They were the New Jersey plan and the Virginia plan. And they were both read to the convention at Independence Hall, which is the same place that the Declaration of Independence was signed. Virginia was the first one to offer their plan to the convention, which was not surprising whatsoever because they had a very, very huge role in the calling of the convention in the first place. Their plan consisted of three branches of government. One was the legislative branch, which would be Congress, and they would make the laws. The second would be the executive branch, which would be the president, and they would enforce the laws. And then the third would be the judicial, which would be the court systems, and they would interpret the laws. The legislative branch in particular would consist of a bicameral or a two-house Congress. And with the bicameral Congress, representation would be based on population or the amount of money that would be given to the central government. This angered the small states greatly because they thought that just because the larger states were bigger and could give more money and had more people doesn't mean that the smaller states would deserve less representation than what the larger states would. So then they developed the New Jersey plan. The New Jersey plan was developed to defend the small states' interests. The plan stated that they wanted a unicameral Congress, which means just one house, and representation within that Congress would be divided equally between all of the states. Didn't matter their size, didn't matter how much money they gave, it was just equal. Of course, this upset the larger states just as their plan upset the smaller states because they were bigger, they were better, so they deserved more representation than the smaller states. So what they needed was a compromise. The smaller states feared the loss of their protection against their interests, and the larger states wanted the power, they wanted the control of the new government. This is where the Connecticut Compromise came into play. The Connecticut Compromise is also called the Great Compromise because representation on the Constitution was a big, big deal. So they thought it was the Great Compromise because it was finally solved. Connecticut gave both of what each of the two sides of the debate wanted. They pulled different pieces from each plan and then kind of joined them together. It was agreed that the legislative branch would have two houses. It would be bicameral. The smaller house would be the Senate, and the Senate would be based on nothing. It'd be based just equally for every state. And there would be two senators from each state for representation within the Senate. However, the House of Representatives was different. There would be the population basis for their representatives. But then when you think the problem was being solved, it just wasn't quite done yet. Because then the North and the South came up with a debate between whether the slaves should be counted or not. The South wanted all the slaves to be counted because they wanted more representation in the North because the Northerners, they didn't want the slaves to be counted because they did not believe in slavery. Well, the North gave a very, very good argument because they said that if these Southerners treat slaves as property and they think of them as such, then why should they be then changed into people when they weren't thought of that in the first place, just so the South would have more representation. So the South was extremely furious as to what the Northerners had to say, and so they both decided on the 3/5 compromise. The 3/5 compromise said that only 3/5 of the slaves would be counted towards their population, and this formula would also be used when Congress wanted to raise money from the states by a direct tax that they levied. The problem was then solved. All of these compromises and all of these facts would then have to be put into the Constitution, and they now make up Article 1, Section 2, and Section 3. Article 1, Section 2 summarizes the House. It says that the House will have elections every 2 years and that they will be chosen by the district from which they will be representing. The Section 2 also sets the qualifications for members of the House. It says that they have to be 25 years old, a citizen of the United States for 7 years, and an inhabitant of the state for which they will be representing. It also discusses reapportionment. Reapportionment occurs every 10 years when they redistribute the representatives for each state because of either a growing population or a decreasing population. For example, Iowa used to have 6 representatives, but since the decrease in the population, we now only have 5. Representation has a 1 to 30,000 ratio limit, which means that for every 1 representative, there is only a 30,000 limit for how many they can represent. It also says that every state is guaranteed at least 1 representative. It doesn't matter the size, how much money, it always says that they still can have at least 1 representative. And then this Article 1, Section 2 also says that the 3/5 of the slaves can be counted towards population. If any vacancies occur in the seats of the House, then, like because of death or because of anyone leaving, then the executive authority issues a right of election to fill the spot. The Speaker and the other officers of the House are chosen by the House themselves, and they also are the sole power for impeachment, which means that they can determine if you'll be impeached or not. Today, we have 435 members that occupy the seats of the House of Representatives. The members serve 2-year terms and are elected by the district from which they will be representing. I am of District 5, and Steve King is our representative, and he is a Republican. The 3/5 compromise has been removed because slavery is no longer practiced. Article 1, Section 3 summarizes the Senate. It says that there will be 2 senators from every state, and only 1/3 of the seats will be up for an election every 2 years. And this is so that they can be a continuing body, which means that they can, while 1/3 of them are being re-elected or are campaigning, the other portion of the Senate can still do business. A senator has to be 30 years old, a citizen for at least 9 years, and a resident of the state for which they are representing. The vice president is the leader of the Senate, but he does not have a lot of power. They try all impeachments, and they give only the removal of office for the punishment of impeaching. Today, the Senate is made up of 100 members, 2 from each state, 6-year terms, our continuing body, and they are often called upper house. Our government today possesses some of the same qualities. but it is something that the